the sort of narrative in the public almost is people have a terminal disease and they almost become angelic. You know, that it's sort of, it's all meant to be terribly nice, and everyone's meant to be terribly understanding and kind. And I mean, your dad, I just thought actually the way he was portrayed, that he was kind of, actually yes, at times, I mean, I certainly wanted to slap him, and that was what your mum was thinking, wasn't it, really? She was just, you know, going from one, and this, my husband's in the audience, and I said to him, when she said, I want a divorce, I was just, yes, because she's living her life. You know, that's what really struck me. She was in incredible disability, incredible. She was truly a whole rounded person, which I just thought was portrayed so beautifully, because I felt like by putting the camera there, she was allowed to tell her story rather than anyone coming and choosing. But obviously the edit, my question really is about how you chose which bits to put in and the story, like, because you obviously wanted a narrative to pull the film through. And how was she involved in that at all? Was Catherine involved in choosing what should stay in and what should not? That's my question.
Do you want to talk about that, and I can add something maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, it's actually a bit more of an Adam question than a Noah question, because as he said, they were very much kind of in the driver's seat when it came to deciding how to turn the massive amount of kind of raw footage I had given them into a story. But just on the question of kind of how we got from A to B, I can also say that I very much from the beginning didn't want it to be kind of my story as an insider exactly about them or from my perspective, and yeah, because I think perhaps I would feel a similar pressure to kind of canonize my mother, or, you know, make it about how hard my life was, or, you know, attack my father or something like this. I really wanted it to be almost kind of Adam and Senham as empathetic outsiders looking into the family. I wanted to kind of hand it off to them to see what they see from something of the perspective of, yeah, almost a palliative worker coming in and getting a view of the family. But of course, you know, that view lasted, 900 plus hours. So they were really able to, in a sense, get to know us in a way that a lot of other visitors wouldn't.
If I could add, yeah, I think, normal documentaries, you're with the people filming, and you get to know them while you're filming. In this case, it was all, a one-way mirror where they didn't know me at all, but I knew them, and Sam knew them very well after all these years of editing. So our approach, I think Sam and I are kind of almost speak as one. It's a shame she couldn't be here, but we've been married for, almost 2 decades now. So we do everything together, also creatively as well as partners. So we really have a similar thinking. And our thinking is, when you say documentary, you suddenly fall into this trap where people expect something like kind of journalistic ethics, in the sense of, let's report the facts. And I think what we don't want to do is that we want to report our subjective emotional interpretation of the facts. So the first thing is you look at the footage and you say, what do you think about these people? What do we think about them? What do you think of these relationships? What's important? What matters? What's the essence of it? And then once you've got your ideas about what you think about these people, the family dynamics, and so on, what matters to this story, then it's like, okay, now what can we do with this footage to transmit our personal feelings about this situation to the audience? And at that point, it's kind of no holds barred. There's no sense that that actually didn't happen on that day, that happened on the other day, or in fact this or that. All these things can be freely mixed in order to transmit what we believe is an authentic and true and honest interpretation of the situation and the people involved.
That's really, really interesting, because actually, if it was academic research, they'd probably at that point be going back to the protagonists and saying, is this what you see as a true reflection of your life or what's going on? Whereas actually you're saying, actually we are the artists here. You've given us this, now this is up to us. Am I right? Exactly
that, yeah. And in fact, we even had a thing where we said, look, kind of veto power, we would call it, where we would say if something specific was in the footage at the end, like example we gave, I think, talking to Noah and I talking about this, like if someone read a credit card number on the phone, or there's some kind of perhaps nudity that was just too much, or specific things that just can't be in the film. Well, in that case, they can say, we don't want that particular thing, but it couldn't be, once we finish, well, we don't like how you show us. You know, no, this is our view of them, which is exactly what Noah wanted. And in fact, in some rough cuts that he saw, what I really respected and appreciated about his commitment was several times he'd say, you know, can't you hit me a bit harder? I look too nice. You know, I wasn't that nice. You know, Noah really wanted us to be outsiders, not to favor him. And sometimes it was hard, but I think he was a really nice son most of the time, you know. But he didn't, he really wanted it to be a tough film and an honest film. I think his mom was also quite committed to that, which was really liberating also as the editors and filmmakers on this end.
And I think that's absolutely the success of the film from my perspective as someone who's written a lot about the representation of death and dying on film. That's what's so extraordinary about it. It is both brutally honest, but at the same time, the skill of the storytellers that are trying to balance that brutal honesty with the charmingness of life, because of course it's messy and painful, but there was also joy. It's a story of pain and joy, and you really managed to temper the two of them together incredibly skillfully. I'm very grateful for that. I'm going to see if there's any questions from the audience. The audience here in Birmingham, because we're occurring simultaneously-ish, I believe, in two places. Are there any questions? Yes, there are. Right next to you, Pablo, first of all.
Thank you, Noah and Adam, for this extraordinary film that touched me deeply, because I have a life-limiting illness, and with the progression of my illness, I might be heading towards full disability. So seeing this film was cathartic in the sense that, maybe not cathartic, but validating, that this pain is real, the invasiveness that kind of is imposed on one's body once we hit any life-limiting illness. We're completely open to whether it's nurses or doctors, and everyone knows everything about you. I'm honoured that you situated us in and your mother situated us in her pain and allowed us to sit in it with her for 75 minutes. It was extraordinary. I was wondering if the choice of mounting the camera on her wheelchair was also, other than it's a genius cinematic tactic, but was it also an attempt to give her back part of her agency, that allowing us to literally see the world, that's her point of view, see the world through her eyes, especially when she speaks through her eye movements as well. I was also stricken by the decision not to show your mother's face until the two scenes in the van where we just see the side of her face, and was that a conscious decision? Also, we know that there isn't, like, cinema verite in its purest sense doesn't really exist. This fly on the wall, there's always an element of performativity. And I was wondering if, especially when it came to your father, if, first of all, his response to how he comes across, and if you think that in certain points he was performing to the camera. Like there's the scene when, which is a very frustrating scene, where he can't stop talking over you when you're trying to show him how to move your mum, and then at a point you say, "Stop acting like a crazy man," and while you're saying that, he's literally stripping to the camera. And what do you make of these things? And last, if your mother was still alive, how different would the film be? And again, I can't thank you enough. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll maybe begin to answer that. I'm sure Adam would also like to weigh in, particularly on kind of the some of the creative choices that we made. So I guess let me start from the last question and work my way backwards. So my mother, she did have the opportunity, actually, in her last week of life, to watch. I think it was the first full rough cut that had been made, and it ended up being, I think, one of the few times that week when she was actually smiling and laughing, mostly at my father's expense. But as she did, so she had the opportunity to see that. She also had the opportunity to be contributing to that narration that you hear. A lot of that is drawn from a back and forth kind of question and answer, or an interview that Adam did via email with her. So I'm not sure how the film would have changed, in a sense, if she had lived to see the rest of the production process. I'm not sure, can you still hear me? I saw my video went out for a second there.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, now as far as our kind of awareness of the camera, so certainly people were aware of the camera. Sometimes what would happen, actually, the way that what would happen most often that would reveal this to me was that if my mother and father had a fight, occasionally both of them, or especially my father, would kind of gesture at the camera and say, there's evidence, let's kind of roll back the tape, let's watch it, and it'll show that I was completely right and you were completely wrong in this argument. So I think he had a notion that there was kind of evidence being compiled